What were they thinking? Yes, the Four Seasons made a dramatic change in 1969 to their music. Prior to Genuine Imitation Life Gazette, the Four Seasons songs were generally about a boy and a girl, ragdoll about a girl that was washing windows in the street. I mean, on and on and on. But their songs were, kind of had something you could relate to, etc. All of a sudden, in 1969, they changed all that. The 60s were ending, the 70s were here, psychedelic music was in, and so the Four Seasons released a psychedelic album, and I think I could say that. I think that was a genre that this album was talked about as being part of. It included political, racial, everything in it that was 180 degrees from what the Four Seasons had been. So there's protest songs and just everything. Who was involved in the music is generally the same people, except there was an addition of a gentleman by the name of Jake Holmes. And it's funny, when I went and looked at Wikipedia, Jake Holmes, he was not, there was nothing about Genuine Imitation Life Gazette in his article. I thought that was interesting. But anyway, this Jake Holmes, who was responsible for a lot of content, including work later on with Led Zeppelin, was an extremely active player in this album. Nick Massey had already left the Four Seasons. I think Tommy DeVito was, I wasn't there, may have been questioning doing this album, though as best I could tell, he was on the album. Probably, I think he left after that, and whether you want to believe Jersey Boys or some other story, I don't know. But anyway, Tommy DeVito was on this album. Joe Long, who replaced Nick Massey, was, pun intended, instrumental in this album, along with Bob Crewe, of course, and Bob Gaudio. So Gaudio and Holmes were the writers. Crewe produced. Charlie Colello was involved in arrangements. Joe Long was involved. So, of course, you had Frankie Valli on the album. So they were all there. And then when you look at this album, I bought it. I read it because if you ever look at the album cover and the inside of the album, it's supposed to look like a Gazette newspaper. So I did read that. It was an interesting concept. So Pet Sounds had come out 3 years earlier, or 4 years earlier. Sgt. Pepper came out 3 years earlier. And so the Four Seasons kind of dipped themselves into psychedelic music, along with all of the other things that were going on in the U.S. as we exited the 1960s. So I'm going to pick the song Something's on Her Mind, just because I really liked it. It was a bit of a Four Seasons song and a bit of a psychedelic song. So I want to see what you guys think of it. There's some other songs on it that after this is over, I'll mention to you that I really liked. How did the album do? The reviews were more bad than good, or everybody will say they were mixed. I think because it was the Four Seasons and such a departure from them, it was kind of like the Beach Boys. Pet Sounds got lukewarm reviews, though now you look back on it and say, wow, that was some album. I think it's the same thing with Genuine Imitation Life Gazette, is now that you're able to look back on it and understand it and listen to it, it would be, wow, I think that was a pretty good album. So anyway, we'll talk a little bit more afterwards, and we're going to go listen to Something's on Her Mind. Let me see what you guys think, going way, way back to 1969 as we leave the 1960s. 60s.
Is she looking at me? Is a feeling really happening? It's so easy to see something's on her mind. Is she really as free as the girl that she pretends to be? Does she know that I see something's on her mind? Will she find a way to talk to me? Does she really want my company? Is she thinking like me? Does she wonder if I'm wondering? Is she trying to see something's on my mind? Or maybe a fool to let her go. But I can't begin to tell her so. Does she wish he was me? Does she really want to be with him? Wonder if he can see something's on her mind. Something's on her mind. Something's on her mind. Something's on her mind. Ooh. Something's on her mind. Ooh. Something's on her mind. Ooh. Something's on her mind.
Well, there you go. Something's on her mind. I don't know what you think of it. It was kind of a four-season song, I think, and then it wasn't. Whether it be the very end of it or some other parts of it. But the album itself is so intriguing. Frank Sinatra, listening to the album, liked it so much, he decided to get them to help him with an album that eventually became Watertown for his comeback. Yeah, Frank Sinatra really needed a comeback album, didn't he? But anyway, this album introduced Frank Sinatra to making some changes and coming out with a new album. There were several songs on the album that came out as singles, significant Four Seasons departures. I mean, Goodbye Girl, Idaho. Idaho's kind of a catchy tune, by the way. I mean, it's just, and none of them really did well. I think the best they may have charted was in the 90s on Billboard. So the four songs were kind of right around Billboard 100. The world was not ready for the Four Seasons to come out with these kinds of songs and this album. But if it wasn't the Four Seasons, how would it have done? I think it would have done really good. I mean, the Beatles pulled it off because they were the Beatles. They could get away with literally anything, just because of who they were. The Beach Boys didn't pull it off, and the Four Seasons didn't pull it off. But I look back, and I'm kind of curious, any of you that have heard, listened to, know about Genuine Imitation Life Gazette, what do you guys think? I'm going to do a few more of their songs in the future. There's one of their songs is called A New Beginning. I used it in business, to be quite honest with you, as a come on, let's go, we're going to change things up, etc. The song is not a rah rah song. It's kind of a low key, but the words are very significant, and I love that song. So we're going to see what you guys think in the future of some of the singles they released, some of the songs like A New Beginning. I think the song Genuine Imitation Life that was on the album may have been solely written by Jay Combs, but I'm not positive. Again, others of you that listen, like Anthony, probably would be a big help to me on this album and what you think. So, Genuine Imitation Life Gazette was not the Ragdoll album, but anyway, it was, in my opinion, a really, really good album. Thank you guys